Call this meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
Recording in
United States
progress.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Councilor Crane,
Here.
Councilor Weeks, Councilor Humbert,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Howe.
Here.
We have a quorum. We may proceed.
I'm here, for the record, I'm here as well.
Okay.
Okay, you're the
Okay. This is just our budget summary meeting for the month of May. And there's really not any agenda other than Manager Weir and his presentation.
Mayor, Council, I will tell you that we had some last-minute changes to the budget today. Director Epler and some others had some changes. So what I'm presenting to you, there are going to need to be additional changes. And what I'll do on the 27th, when you vote to approve this, is I will show you specifically what changed from this meeting. So you'll know what did change. But if you could, this right here, the report that's colored, this is our claim on cash report. So this shows the account number and the description in the fund name. And then you can see at the beginning of this year, on July 1st, what our claim on cash. So claim on cash is for that fund, how much cash does it have in the bank? And so you'll see the beginning balance as of June 30th. And then the ending balance is actually our balance as of today. One of the things that we have to do in the budget report is for the funds, we have to submit all of the beginning cash balances. The fact that we don't really know those numbers even on June 30th because it takes time to post all the entries and to get everything into the system. That's why we have the dual submission budget process that we have in the state. So what we will do is when we submit the budget on June 1st, it'll be an estimate of your ending cash balance for this year, which is going to be your beginning cash balance for next year. So we'll do an estimate based on these numbers when we submit June 1st, because we don't even know what we're going to get for June yet, right? When we submit this budget. So we will do an estimate. It'll be based off of these numbers. It'll be based off of historically in the month of June, how much additional cash did we get? How much additional expenditures do we have? And we'll do an estimate that will be submitted as part of the budget. But I wanted to give you all a frame of reference for this presentation. So we haven't come up with that estimate yet, but these are the numbers as of today. Now, a few of these you may notice are negative balances under the ending balance. These are because there needs to be transfers done out of the general fund to cover those negative balances, and the transfers just haven't been posted yet. Generally, we do those adjustments at the end of the year. It's not something that is a significant issue during the year, because if you look at them, most of these are like enterprise, the airport enterprise has a negative balance of $71,000. So because we took on the airport this year and we had some expenditures, over half of that is an insurance policy that was not reported to us by the county when we took it over. There's almost a $39,000 insurance policy that they had that they had historically recorded under just general fund insurance and not under the airport, and when we went,
I'll comment on that real quick.
when we went to get, our insurance, we found out we had to do this, and on top of that, this year, it was even greater than what they had paid in the past. The insurance actually went up this year. So that's part of it, and for that, what we will have to do is make up those negative amounts with cash out of the general fund. And it's not something, we didn't have any of that last year. The other one that you notice here is housing enterprise, and it's 309. And that's how much money we've spent on workforce housing so far. That includes the purchase of the land, which is the majority of it, and some other expenses that we've incurred due to workforce housing. We haven't received the grant yet. So that $2.4 million grant is not reflected here because we probably won't receive it until July or August. So it's not in that number, but I just wanted to point out that's why that number is so high. At the end of the year, we will have to cover that balance out of the general fund. Whatever that number is, we haven't paid yet, will have to be covered out of the general fund. Did you want to say something?
Yes, sir. Mayor and council, this morning going through the budget with Heather, I made the point of showing the 2024 budget that was sent to us by the county showed $5,000 budgeted for that insurance last year. That's the variance, that's how great the variance is. That's what we were looking at when we were assuming this, just so you know, and I can show you that from what they sent us.
The other big one is bond proceeds. And that one actually is just, we have two funds dealing with bonds. We have the bond, the 401 and the 301. And if you look in the 401, we have 2.9 million in cash, the 401. And then in the 301, we have a negative 800. So that's really just a journal entry out of one fund into the other to cover that, because with the way we have to report our bonds requires two different funds, and we have to transfer money between those funds to cover the payments versus the expenditures for roads and infrastructure. So that negative 879 isn't actually, it'll actually be a positive number once we make that adjustment. So that adjustment hasn't been made, but it will be made before year end. But otherwise, you can see these numbers and I'm gonna focus this on the general fund, because that is our biggest fund. And you can see that right now we have $6.2 million in the general fund in cash. So when you look over at the other report, which is the budget report, what you'll see on here is a section at the top that shows estimated revenue. And then below that is your estimated expenses. And the expenses are summarized by department in this case. Now, I will tell you, if y'all want a detailed GL listing like I handed out last time, just come ask and we'll provide it to you. But based on the feedback from the last meeting, we decided to present these summarized numbers for presentation today. But you'll see that the expenses by department, and then you'll see a total, and if you look for the general fund, it says fund, at the bottom of the general fund, if it says fund 11000, dash general operating fund surplus deficit, and if you look at the, the column that says both the current and the original budget are the same amounts, because this is projections, but you'll see we have a negative balance there, negative $2,840,000. So what that means is that we're gonna spend $2,840,000 more than we're gonna get in revenue for the general fund. So if you look at that negative number and then you come over to this sheet that has your cash balances, you'll be able to see we have 6.2 million in cash. So the 6.2 is going to more than cover the additional expenditures this year. And so our plan all along, because when we came in, we had about $10 million in cash in the general fund. And our plan all along was to spend 3 million over 3 years in excess of our revenue in the general fund. So we hit that number. We went slightly over this year in the general fund. I can't remember exactly, but it's gonna end up being like about 3.1 million. We spent more for FY '25 than we had in revenue. Of course, we haven't received May or June revenues numbers yet, so that's 3.1 is an estimate basically. And so next year we're projecting on spending right now 2.8 more than we have in revenue. And that's gonna leave us, if you subtract that, it's gonna leave us with about, about 3.3 million for FY '27 to spend in excess. And if we spend 3 million there, and a lot of that depends on, revenue. Our revenue is actually very flat. We may actually, if we have a big April or June, which remember, GRT is paid 60 days in arrears. So really, what we're gonna get for May is the revenue we earned in March. So May can be a big month on the books, even though nothing's happening, because it's really the revenue, the GRT we earned in March. So we could actually be flat. We're close enough. The numbers right now, we're about 3.5% down right now, but if March numbers come in good, we could be flat year over year with as bad of a ski year as we had. That's quite an accomplishment in my mind, considering the snow that we had, to have flat revenue. So anyhow, if you get a lot of revenue, if we have a good snow year, or I will tell you that for any of you that have been around marketing, you've got to know that when you spend money, there's a delayed response to revenue generation from marketing. It doesn't happen right away. A lot of marketing takes years to build on it. And I think our marketing expenditures were the reason why we had a flat year this year. I think we had a great marketing program that allowed us to have a flat year, but we're building on that marketing program. And I think that you'll see that with a good snow year, we probably would have had a record revenue year this year. And so what you can also see on this report, since these are projections, is last year we projected 9.3 million in revenue. And for this coming year, I'm projecting 11.1 million in revenue for the general fund. Part of that comes from new sources of revenue. Like for example, we only got $500,000 in interest income this year because we didn't start getting paid interest on our deposits until mid-year.
Until August.
So, basically mid-year. But so we got almost 600,000 already in interest income. Next year I'm projecting that we'll get close to $1 million in interest income because we'll have a full year of interest payments on that money. That's a big part of it. Also the cannabis revenues are starting to pick up because, that store opened up late or whatever. I mean, right now, so far this year we've got about $31,000 in cannabis revenue. I'm projecting we'll get about $100,000 next year in cannabis revenue.
How do they pay that? What's their form of payment?
It's basically like GRT.
But, I mean, because banks are not allowed to,
So some banks are, and I don't know the specifics.
So
Like-
federal banks aren't,
Yeah.
state banks can.
Credit
And I
unions.
think, and for instance, I think InBank did, that was one of the things that positioned them well, was the fact that they learned how to handle that money.
Okay. I was wondering if they walked in with a,
Sack of cash. Brown bag.
No, it comes in just like our GRT, it comes in
Okay.
with our GRT.
Same delay cycle, same everything, it's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Yeah, it's-
so while we're on that, would you talk to the lodger's tax
sure.
on this colored page?
Okay, so the 1.7. So for lodger's tax, we started out the year at 2.6 million in cash. And we have now 1.7, which shows the activity of a negative 940. That means we've spent $940,000 more than we brought in revenue for lodger's tax. And if you look at the budget,
Is that then for infrastructure?
I'm sorry?
That money that we spent, is part of that for infrastructure, for the
Some of it is,
new?
for this out here, yeah, we've had to spend a little over $200,000 on material. We have another 147, I think it is, Kurt probably knows, to spend on material for the parking lots.
Right,
Yeah, so part of it is for infrastructure, not a significant part. The majority of this, we did get some things. We, they got a new trailer. We bought a porta potty, that was $59,000, 5-seater porta potty trailer.
Is the turf considered in that figure already, or no?
It's totally configured. It's out there right now. You can
The turf
go use
is?
it. Oh, the turf.
The turf, is
I
the
thought you
turf in this figure,
No.
I know that money hasn't been spent yet.
No, we haven't spent the money on the turf yet, so it's not in this, but,
That's
that,
lodger's tax as well.
it is lodger's tax, it's gonna be in excess of $400,000 for the turf. But that is not in this number. Most of this 940, I would probably say at least 750,000 of it is just marketing that we spent on marketing. Now, I will tell you, our marketing expenses are gonna go down because we had to build up our portfolios of pictures and, all of the logos and things like that, swag that, are part of a marketing campaign that you don't have to buy every year. You know, you might wanna renew it every 3 years or so.
Yeah, the catalog, like the photos, the content.
Exactly. So, we're actually looking at our marketing expenditures going down, next year as compared to this year. But, overall, this 1.7 million is being held, it's being earmarked for the new event center. Actually, 1.6 million of it is being earmarked for the event center. So we're not gonna spend that, we'll hold that in cash until the event center starts getting developed. But the projection this year for revenue is 1.4 million in lodger's tax, which we had just over $1 million last year, so it's about a 30% increase in lodger's tax revenue we believe we're gonna get. But there's two sources that are happening. Number one is the new lodger's tax ordinance. You know, I don't know if you guys are aware, but since the lodger's tax was put in place, we've just been relying on people's honesty and collected $1 million a year. We had no forms of tracking, we have no forms of enforcement. We didn't know, we just relied on honesty. Well, with the new system, Granicus system that we have, we believe that that's gonna contribute, and from that, we believe we'll increase about $200,000 worth of additional revenue just from starting to utilize that system. And the licensure that we're, now, that doesn't include licensure. Licensure has to get booked in the general fund. But the fact that we're asking for license now, we just think people are more likely to pay the lodger's tax, because we'll be able to see who paid what and be able to track it much better. And then through Granicus, we're gonna know. We'll know when somebody booked a room or booked their house. And we'll be able to say, hey, well, you didn't, you know, the numbers don't add up. So I think once people understand that we're now able to track that and that we can now enforce it, we're projecting that that'll increase revenue just by itself by about $200,000 a year. The other $200,000 a year is in growth, primarily through events. So this is gonna be our first year to have a full schedule of events. And we believe that those events will bring in lodger's tax over the whole year about another $200,000 in lodger's tax is our estimate. So between those two, we're collecting $1 million in lodger's tax this year. We're estimating that next year's lodger's tax revenue will be about $1.4 million. And we will basically expend all of that. Now, to be honest, that doesn't count all the revenue. Part of the increase in the general fund revenue is that the events revenue that we're gonna get, the sponsorship revenue, I don't know, on balloons, we've already got over $40,000 in sponsorship revenue for balloons. So all of that revenue can't be booked in lodger's tax. It's not lodger's tax revenue. So one of the things we did this year is we created a new department, or revitalized a department that was here years ago in the general fund, and economic development is the department. And we're booking all that revenue in there. Now, one of the other things that we did with this economic development is we moved some of the expense for personnel out of tourism, because all of our tourist department were being paid by lodger's tax. And it made sense, because mostly what they were doing was trying to put heads in beds, right? That's the thing, is the activity you're doing putting heads in beds. And so this year, we're gonna be asking the tourism department to do more activities that are village oriented and not necessarily tourism oriented. And so because of that, we did pull, you'll see, again on page 1, if you look down under Department 2014, under expenses for Fund 11000, there's 2014 Economic Community Development. And you'll see that there's $135,000 in expenses. That predominantly is payroll. So we're moving part of Greg's salary, part of Carolyn's salary into the general fund, because Caroline is also doing our business licenses now. And she's doing business licenses, it's not really heads and beds. So technically, that portion of her salary shouldn't be paid by lodger's tax. Just like Greg is doing more with public relations work. In the public relations work, a lot of it's not really about putting heads in beds. Maybe indirectly, but not directly. And so we decided to move part of both of those people's salaries into the general fund under economic development. So the other one where, we have a lot of revenue is, or a lot of cash, is in the solid waste enterprise, which is Fund 502. So if you'll turn in this budget report on page, I think it's on page 3. Yeah, on page 3, you'll see at the top, Fund 502. And you'll see that we're budgeting, expending $2.3 million more than they're gonna collect in revenue this year. And if you look on the claims on cash report, that's about what they have. It's actually a little high. We may have to adjust that depending upon what our collections are at the end of the year, because that says 2.3, and right now claims in cash, they have 2.2. So we may have to pull reduce their budget by about $100,000 to get those to match up. But what we're doing there is, and Kurt, I don't know if you wanna explain what that money is gonna be spent on, since you're here. You might be able to explain it better than I.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the goal was set over a year ago to move towards getting an enclosed dumpster facility for household trash drop off. So, and there weren't a whole lot of expenditures. There weren't a whole lot of immediate equipment or asset needs for solid waste. But we also want to do some renovations on the solid waste facility, something that's been on the ICIP for quite a few years. And that's not really getting it done. So, yeah, I see opportunity to do those improvements on the solid waste facility, just out of budget as opposed to seeking grant money to do it.
And Kurt, does that have, we'd had some talks and we looked at the scale. Is that considered in this budget?
Actually, it's not. We're hoping that we can cover that in this fiscal year. It is in a sense covered in the next year's budget, because I don't believe that the project will be completed by the end of June. We got a request for bid, was the opening was this week. We'll be presenting that to council on Tuesday. We did get a respondent, and but I think the work is going to go past the end of the fiscal year. So it is budgeted for the next fiscal year as well.
Is there a site identified yet for potential enclosed for household trash? For that, whatever that future building may be?
Well, there's been a lot of discussion, but nothing has really been settled on. At this point, I'm considering the current location, about covering it there. I know there's a desire to get it closer into the center of town, if you will. But I know that's received some pushback. You know, here again, it's something that we want to do, but I think collectively as a group, I don't believe we have settled in on a final location.
Yeah, it would be something we'd bring before the council, I think, the final location. We'll make recommendations. We don't really have a committee to run that through, so we'll just have to do the legwork ourselves and make a recommendation to the council. Again, my preference, which I know doesn't get a lot of support, but my preference is to move it in somewhere closer to the core of town. Quite frankly, and you know, again, this is just my opinion, and it's your opinion, the council's opinion that counts. But I would like to move it in closer to town so we could remove the need to have dumpsters in the core. I think during busy times, dumpsters in the core can lead to trash, especially in the summer with bears and high wind scenarios that I think detracts from the look and feel of Angel Fire, but that's my opinion. We'll have to see. I know a lot of people don't get it, but it's, you know, the vision isn't totally enclosed where people would come into a building drop off their trash, and it's a compactor that would automatically compact it into a truck, it would actually decrease our cost in operations because we'd have to make fewer trips to Wagon Mound, because of the way it compacts. Our trash fees will be the same because they're based on tonnage. So the tonnage would be the same, but we would have to make fewer trips to Wagon Mound, which would reduce our overall cost of solid waste, if we could implement something like that. So that, again, it's something that we're pursuing. We'll do so and advise the council, when we have ideas, and it'll be a council decision as to what we move forward with. I don't know if you guys have any questions on anything specific. Again, we do have the details that are available. I will tell you that probably the biggest increase in our expenses, most departments were held to a 3.5% increase in payroll. There are a few exceptions to that, but most of them are at 3.5%. But I will tell you, if you look here, one of our biggest expenses in the general fund is fire protection. And we are doing some things in fire protection, and Chief was here earlier. I don't know, he had a call. But we went back and forth quite a bit on his payroll. Because his goal, and it's a noble goal, I think, is to provide a very high level of service to the community and to have staff available to operate 2 ambulances 24/7. Right now, we average about 4 people on staff during a period, let's just say a day. Yeah, we average 4, but we don't always have 4. And you need at least 4 to operate 2 ambulances, because it's at least 2 people per ambulance. So sometimes we only have 3. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to have 4 when things are really slow and we may only have 2 to try and save money, because there are times when we have 5 people here working during a shift during really peak times like 4th of July and so on. We'll staff up. So we are increasing our full-time staff by about $100,000, $120,000 a year, and we're also increasing our what we call temporary employees. So a temporary employee, if you're looking at the detail, you won't see it in this report, is what we refer to as PRNs, or people that we bring on board as needed. The PRN expenditure this year is also it's approaching $500,000 a year in PRNs, and that's what we have to do to try and keep that the staffing at 4 people during the busy periods, because we can't, we have 3 rotations in the fire department. And the rotations, we can't ask the people that are in a rotation, I mean, we can and we have, to come in during somebody else's rotation. It causes us a huge expense in overtime. So we generally try to bring PRNs to fill that role when we need extra. And so that cost is significant, but if we were to hire those as full-time people, the cost would be not quite double, but it'd be significantly more than what we're asking for right now. The other thing that we have this year, we had a lot of buffer room in, last year because we were so understaffed. Right now, we're short really just one person in finance, and at least admin and finance would be fully staffed. Most of the departments are near full staffed, if not, police department's fully staffed. The fire department, not really, but kind of fully staffed. You know, we're providing greater coverage than has ever been provided at the Village of Angel Fire with our fire department right now. The coverage is above and beyond what has ever been offered by the fire department. But a lot of that's filled in with PRN, so they're not full-time employees. But virtually every other thing is filled in, which is a good thing for getting things done. The issue is we no longer have any buffer room in our budget because, like, I didn't worry too much about some expenditures because I knew that we didn't have a finance director for a year. You know, so I knew that money was in the budget and it was kind of a buffer. Well, I have a finance director now, so I no longer have that buffer.
It's his fault.
Yeah, it's all his fault.
I'm back here counting my cash.
And we're experiencing that throughout pretty much all of our departments, where those buffers that were there because of having open positions, those buffers are no longer there, which is gonna lead to us having to manage our budgets much tighter and be much more concerned. I joked with the staff and I told them our first year we spent money like drunken sailors, and you're all gonna have to sober up. So,
Except for Kurt.
no, Kurt's gotta sober up some too. We did actually reduce in the streets department. Last year, we spent about 2.5 million on road improvements. This year, it's gonna be about 1.6 million in road improvements. And the focus is gonna change a little bit from actually material. Most of our expenditures were on material and the laying of that material on roads. And we're changing the focus this year to water and drainage, which means more culverts, replacing culverts, building up roads that needed to be built up so water doesn't run over them and erode them. It also means working on, one of the things that I'm working with, or Chuck and I will be working on together, is a rewrite of Title VII, which deals with the encroachment permits and some of the requirements there. Because quite frankly, a lot of drainage, water drainage and damage to our roads comes off of people's driveways. And it's very expensive to fix that stuff. And so we've got to come up with a solution. And even though we did a lot of road repair last year, to be honest, we've actually seen, and Kurt can give you examples of some of this place where we put all this beautiful new compacted, and then we had a big rain and big chunks of it washed away. So it kind of made us realize it doesn't make sense to be spending all this money on material for roads when it's just gonna wash away. So that's why we shifted our focus this year to drainage and trying to improve drainage. Then we'll shift back next year to road material. Hopefully we'll get most stuff done this year. Kurt, did you want to add anything to that?
I do want to add that, you know, one thing that wasn't in this current year's budget was the paving of South Angel Fire Road and Aspen Street. We're not doing that with GO bond dollars. We're budgeted for that under other contractual services. We won't have a project of that significance out of budget for this year. And I do want to add that the roads, most of the roads that we base course last year were, as I've said before, on the verge of going primitive. They needed material on them. The next roads that we want to approach do need significant drainage work prior to putting base course on them. But there are also some other areas that are being impacted by poor drainage, undersized culverts, damaged culverts. There's going to be a lot of small section work addressing those drainage issues. And another example of drainage need is on Moraine Way, which is right across from the resort RV park and stables area. The Senegia flows through it. It has a 48-inch culvert that goes through that's collapsed in the center. We've been able to keep it where water's going through it, but that's a pretty significant culvert replacement there. Something we may potentially be contracting out. We'll try to do it in-house. But yeah, we've got drainage issues everywhere that we need to address, and doing that prior to. We're still going to be placing base course in areas that have sufficient drainage and are in need of base course. But there's got to be a lot of drainage work done.
So another thing that we did do this year in most of our funds is we tried to budget, unless it just didn't make sense or whatever, we tried to budget full expenditure of the cash that we had in most funds. Now, we may not do that, like in solid waste, let's go back to it. If we went ahead and budgeted it this year, because it possibly could happen, and how much of that new enclosed station we get done this year is a variable, we don't know. So we just went ahead and budgeted the full amount. The reality is we're probably not gonna spend that full amount this year, but since we have the cash, I'd rather budget it and not spend it than not have it budgeted and need to spend it. So that's kind of the approach we did throughout the budget this year. Again, with the exception of the general fund, where we're holding back about 3.2 million of cash in the general fund so that it'll be available for expenditures next year in FY27. So a lot of these, we're budgeting these expenditures, we're kind of, on some of these capital projects especially, we're budgeting a little high. Just because might get something done, and it may not happen. I mean, even the event center is an example of that, where we've budgeted the expenditure of that money, the 1.6 million we budgeted, and we don't know. We're still got a long ways to go before we have to spend all of that money. We'll be lucky if that thing is built by this time next year.
Or started.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping to start not this summer, but next summer.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It'd be this time next year to start, most likely.
Oh, yeah, starting this time next year.
That's
You're right.
the case scenario.
So, but we went ahead and put it in the budget in case something happens, when we're gonna, I mean, you never know, things could go well, and maybe we could get started this summer, I don't know. But we know we wanna do it, so we went ahead and included it in the budget. And as always, there's things that were gray, like, we perceive, Jeff, is gonna work to get more grants for the airport. He's been meeting with the State Department of Transportation, and we're working with them to try and utilize the grants and the FAA, the grants that county currently has. But I think we will start seeking grants as well, but there's still a lot of gray in that area, so we didn't really budget that because it was just too gray. So I don't know if you guys have any other questions. Chief Vance, I mean, I kinda went over where we stood with the fire department. Did you have anything you wanted to say?
I don't have anything to add, I'm sure you covered it, you know it better than I do, so, if I can answer any questions, I'm happy to do that.
And again, if y'all want the general ledger detail, we're happy to provide it. We've actually had some printed out. But I said no, because last time, you know, I was trying to appease Councilman Humbert. And I figured I could just print his I know he's gonna want details, so I'll print it off for him. But you guys are welcome to it as well. If you want, just let me know and we'll get all the detail printed for you.
What changes do you anticipate? You said this budget, it will be revised before the 27th. What are you anticipating, at least what departments?
Well, I think we nailed payroll down pretty well. We spent a lot of time on payroll over this past week, and I think we got it pretty nailed down. So the changes are mainly gonna be capital expenditures. You know, the day-to-day stuff, we've got that. There might be a little tweaking here and there, but nothing significant. The big deal is gonna be capital expenditures, probably, and Kurt and I are gonna have to work on capital expenditures for joint utilities. You know, Kurt's on vacation this week. I really appreciate him being willing to come and join us for this meeting. But I didn't have a chance to really sit down and hash out some of his capital expenditures and joint utilities. And to be frank, we're probably gonna have to cut, $1 million to $1.5 million out of what he wants to spend. It doesn't mean we're gonna cut it, we may have to move it to Go Bond.
He didn't hang
out
up,
of
but he's
joint
shaking his
utilities.
head,
I see some negotiation here.
But I think that's what's gonna change, for the most part. Again, you'll see minor changes in just daily expenditures, you know, if we're trying to find some money. Somebody puts in $7,000 for supplies and I'll say, well, I'll take 2 out of it and reduce it to 5,000 so I can put that 2 somewhere else. But as far as big changes, it's gonna be in capital expenditures. Equipment we wanna buy, buildings we wanna build, those type of things.
I see in your narrative here, the 7th officer was the ask, but that's being pulled back out from law enforcement.
Yeah, so we just couldn't fit it into this year's budget. I'll be honest, I want a seventh officer, just because of coverage. That's my preference. Again, if we're trying to provide the highest level of security and safety that the village has ever had, you know, I think that there is and I wish Jerry was here because he could, we've had this conversation on several occasions. But I do think there is an ability to justify that, but you can't justify it when you don't have the money. And we just didn't have the money. You know, this is at some point, we're gonna need to talk about some other opportunities that we have at the village when it comes to policing. Part of them potentially related to our HOV ordinance, some of them related to our neighbors and coverage here in the valley. So if we expand what we're covering with our police force in any way, we're gonna need a 7th officer for sure. And then again, I will tell you, and again, here's something Chief Vance may be able to speak to. You know, he didn't have the guts to tell me this himself. So he pulled me into a meeting with the state fire marshal. Although he's actually redeemed himself because he's come back with some good ideas on how we can get our ISO rating from a 5 down to a 4. The state fire marshal basically said, if we want to, one way that we could easily get our ISO rating from a 5 to a 4 is to basically double the number of people we have at any one time. The challenge is to get that down, and again, Chief Vance could explain it better than me, but you need to have 3 apparatus on a structure fire. Well, if we only have 4 people, because we're trying to have 2 ambulances operable, but if you had a structure fire and you only have 4 people, well, 3 of the people have to manage the apparatus. So that only leaves 1 person to actually is gonna have to hold 3 hoses or something, and so what they're saying is, no, I mean, you need at least a person to operate the apparatus and a person to fight the fire. So we would have to go to 6 people, it's not quite doubling, but we would need to go to 6 people 24/7, and then we could bring our ISO rating down to 4. There's some other options that Chief Vance has, that he thinks maybe we can get it down to 4 without doing that. One of the things we're looking at doing is right now our wildland team, they are wildland trained. None of them have structure certifications. And so we are considering going through the process of getting them certified in structure. And if we do that, even though their main purpose may be to work wildland fires, then they would be available to operate the apparatus. And then our people who have history and experience in structure fires could actually be fighting the fire while our wildland team is operating the apparatus. But until they get certified, until they get their structure fire certification, they won't count towards ISO ratings. So we're looking at that and a few other things, beefing up our training and things that maybe this time next year we can be bragging about getting our ISO rating down to a 4 from a 5. So it is a target, but the easy way is to buy your way out of it by bringing on more staff.
Well, in Chief Vance's defense, that's why he had the fire marshal present that information in writing.
Yeah.
Especially at budget time.
Oh, yeah.
Basically asking to double his budget.
Bringing the guy from the state you don't get to say no to, right?
Well, you can say no to them, but
It'd be painful.
Yeah, but the easy way to get it to a 4 is to double the budget.
Right.
so,
Isn't
I had to be truth, he thought if it came from the horse's mouth that I would, believe it more strongly, but.
But I thought you were commending him for getting all the money for the new fire station.
Oh, I didn't even do that, did I? He does.
Isn't the cross certification of fire, EMS, and wildland, at least when we were down at Ruidoso, not that we're Ruidoso or have the same challenges, I think they do exactly that, right? They certify all their guys in structure, wildland.
I don't know about wildland.
I can't remember the guy's name, you probably, the chief we met, I thought he did have all of his guys wildland.
They don't have a full wildland team like we do. We're the only ones in the state that have a full-time wildland team. But they did I do remember him saying that they cross-trained all of their staff in all 3 disciplines.
Yeah.
But they don't have a full wildland team like we do.
But as you do that, obviously, it's a certification game, you're taking employees and paying them to go get those additional certifications. And when they do that, I assume they also climb the salary ladder as they're becoming more certified.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Rocky. That's very much true, and Manager Weir answered it how I would have answered it. We're a pretty unique structure. Most of our structure firefighter crews have some wildland background with S-130, S-190, but that typically requires an annual red card. You have to recertify that. Like the certification never goes away, but you have to have a current red card in order for you to be able to deploy. But it's all comes down to the ISO and how you can boost those numbers. So they'll count for firefighter certifications, but that doesn't help us for ISO, that doesn't help us for state funding. Well, the only thing that matters in that regard is firefighter 1, 2, and hazardous materials incident, or excuse me, ops. So if you have those 3 certifications, then you can count those personnel as part of your initial response. So if some of those folks have the willingness to go through that, it's a pretty short class, it's 2 weeks in Socorro at the Fire Academy. And if we can fund that, yes, that will probably mean some bump in pay for those personnel, but I think it's money well spent because you have almost immediately double the personnel that you have responding to any fire while those folks are on duty.
So
You also have the opportunity, pardon me, sir, you could entertain having those people work overtime to fill spots to backfill, and you wouldn't need as many PRN, so there's a little bit of a game to be able to use those personnel otherwise. And they could drive an ambulance while we keep other personnel available, medical personnel available, so there's a lot of opportunity there.
would you review your staff as their qualifications? Because I know some are EMS, are they all cross-trained into firefighting?
We have a mixture. All of our full-time personnel are firefighters and medically trained to at
Okay.
least EMT basic, intermediate, or paramedic.
Okay,
Some of our part-time personnel are EMS only and don't have fire certifications, although we've had 1 or 2 go through recently that have gotten their fire
Okay.
certification. But off the top of my head, I think we have 3 personnel that are medically trained only, and their primary response, they're the first out, they go on a medical call whenever we have a medical call.
Okay.
So if we have 4 personnel, we'll send the EMS trained only on the medical call to keep the firefighters available
Right,
in
okay.
district.
So while we might like to chase this ISO number by giving Chief Vance what he needs staff-wise, I guess it's just a question of how long it's gonna take to find, train, and then budget, you know, the accounts to pay for all of that, right?
Another response to that is there are federal grants available. There are fire departments like Bernalillo County Fire, who used to be under 2 people per vehicle and then 3 people per vehicle model. They found some federal funding to allow them to go to 4 and 5. So the money's there, we just have to do the legwork to get it there, so there is some opportunity to do that. And I think, don't underestimate the ISO rating dropping for insurance rates for everybody as a whole.
Oh, for sure. I guess what I was building to is kind of this question is we've had a couple of workforce housing committee meetings this week in preparation for next week's council meeting. June and July is all gonna be about the governance of filling those, which is, we've got some feedback from legal, but are you, I guess, starting to rank order your staff wish list, I guess, in light of, you know, hey, if we could get this guy from Albuquerque that has PRN twice, full-time on staff, cause there's housing here, you know what I mean, are we to the point now where your department and others are looking out at those potential housing units and how best to fill them from ISO ratings or need or cost, is that?
Yeah, I say that I'm always active recruiting, I'm always looking for personnel to bring on. We haven't been to a point yet to where, we've had vacancies that we weren't able to fill or find or whatever. With the exception of the inspector position, that was the one that was 40 hours a week and so difficult to manage. When workforce housing comes along, I think that would go a long way towards any of those that have a 40-hour work week model.
I guess what I'm looking at is almost like you're budgeting your dollars. I feel like all the departments are gonna be competing or looking at how many housing spots can you effectively fill in the short term. So starting to budget those homes or find out from department heads how effectively can you use this housing stock that's getting ready to come online?
Off the cuff, I could say the fire department could use 2 40-hour week personnel. We have, Lindsay Reed is currently living out of the district because there's no affordable housing here, so that would be
Yep.
one. And then any potential fire inspector, that's also a 40-hour work week model. So those 2 positions off the cuff would be helpful.
Well, I just ask, cause every time I see Lieutenant Strickland, he's like, hey, when are you gonna have that housing? He's clearly, the gears are turning in his head of who he needs to put in there, so I'm hoping the other department heads are looking at that similarly.
so while we're on that topic, will the Moreno Valley Clinic people, will they also qualify for this housing?
So the current governance document gives deference to village employees first,
Right.
then any employee or contractor of a licensed business in town.
Okay.
So the health clinic would qualify, I believe, as a licensed business in town. I don't know if they're PEEP staff or employees or contractors, but that's why we put it in that way.
The rest of our staff, keep in mind, live and work at the station for 48 hours
Right.
straight, so they typically sleep at the stations. It's a
Right.
little bit lesser need for them.
For sure.
Thank you.
Let's see, is there anything else that is? Um, The only other thing that I would say is that what isn't in this budget is any water rights expenditures. I did set up a meeting for myself and the mayor to, next week, haven't told him yet, on Tuesday to meet with someone that has some water rights for sale. But that's the only thing that isn't in this budget, and, you know, again, I could go into budget, you know, we have in water rights, we have about $500,000 in cash. I think it's right, 466 right now. So we'll have about $500,000 in cash, which is gonna be a down payment perhaps on water rights, but the other, you know, whatever above and beyond that, is probably gonna have to come out of the general fund because we haven't accrued enough revenue from the short-term rental licenses to be able to utilize that revenue in a significant way for water rights. But we are gonna need to make, we're you can see it, I don't know if you guys feel it, but we're at the early stages of a growth spurt. And I see that coming on with all the condos people are looking at and all the permits we sold this year. So water rights is, you know, we did a good job. Kurt kind of saved us last year with fixing all the leaks that had been going on for years. And, you know, that allowed us to actually put water into storage for the first time in I don't know, maybe 7 years, we were able to put water in storage. But with the growth we're having, we're gonna utilize that water pretty quick. And we're gonna need to have more water rights so that we can, so we don't run out of water.
Have we seen a significant increase in revenue with the new water meters?
No, actually, we've seen the opposite. That's a great question. The issue is that the meters didn't get finished. Well, when the meters that are working, we could probably go look. My guess is, I haven't looked at it, my guess is the meters that are working are seeing an increase in billing. Because keep in mind, we had over 500 meters that just didn't work.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the number was, Kurt, was it 500 or 600 or?
Well, they,
Yeah, that didn't work, so for those, we're for sure gonna see an increase. But we had some challenges since they didn't finish. We had some issues where we had to minimum bill quite a few meters because we couldn't accurately get readings off the meters. There were a lot of challenges with the meter swap out that were unanticipated. And hopefully they'll get those meters swapped out. But now they have about 500 left, but they are the meters that are the hardest to install because they got to put new cans in. So they got to either take out the old cans or in some cases put in cans where there weren't cans before. And that process takes a lot longer. It's not pulling a meter up and unplugging it and plugging a new one in. We also did have some challenges with the meter reading, even though it's automated. Some of the devices that were installed that transmit the data to a central location, we had failures in those at times that weren't identified right away. So it ultimately resulted in us minimum billing quite a few meters over that period. And it did result in a slight decline in revenue. But I do still think once we get this up and going, we're gonna see a significant increase. But through the whole meter thing, we took the position of giving the constituents the benefit of the doubt. So instead of billing them more than they really owed and having to deal with that, anything that was gray, we just billed them a minimum bill. And unfortunately, there was quite a few meters that were in that scenario over the summer. I mean, none of them were in that scenario for the whole summer, but you know, maybe a month here and a month there, all these meters, as they replaced them, they had these challenges. And then when they stopped in the winter, again, they left us with some things that we discovered on our own in regards to the meter reading. That wasn't happening adequately. So most of those problems are fixed. We do have the 500 or so meters that need a new can that we're gonna start working on soon. Kurt, I don't know if you have dates on that, when that work begins for the new meters.
They're supposed to be starting here in early June. The the contractor that they had thought was going to start in early May backed out of the project. So they've got another one. I've already met with him, and our last meeting was that is the goal for them to start the first week of June.
Any idea how long the 500 will take, being they're the difficult can installs? Is this gonna take all the way up to winter again, or?
The goal is to have them all done prior to winter, prior to 1st of November, actually.
It's gonna take that long.
Yeah.
The Sustainability Partners did say that, well, once this contractor gets started, if the pace doesn't seem adequate, that they'll get others if they have to put another contractor or two on it. Sustainability Partners has assured me that this is going to get done by November. I did convey to them that the great weather we've had in April and May, there's a lot of days they're going to wish they had back in October. So yeah, they need to get after it. So.
Any other questions?
Comments? All right, well, thank you very much. With that, this meeting is adjourned.
Recording stopped.
Is that what you were expecting yesterday?
Thank you. Unfortunately,
Is it,
a waste of time.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything like this, Fred, in 7
Yeah,
years.
I didn't see anything.
No. Well, I missed your call. We played phone tag after.
Wait until
that
next
yesterday, and I didn't-
It's so
That was
easy
it,
to
I just,
understand.
yeah, I
The
was just
explanation
disappointed.
is good.